Hello friends, welcome to Dr. Rajkumar's Learning here. So, Winter Olympics right now they're going on in Beijing, that is China. But there is a rising issue about the diplomatic boycott of the Winter Olympics. So, first of all, we will understand what is meant by diplomatic boycott. So, this diplomatic boycott is nothing but many countries that are not sending their ministers or the officials for the Winter Olympics, for the opening ceremony or the games, but the athletes will take part in the Olympics except the ministers and officials. So, this is meant by the diplomatic boycott. So, what is the context? So, in Beijing Olympics, what a diplomatic boycott means and why some athletes had traveled with burner phones. So, India has also announced a diplomatic boycott of the Beijing Winter Olympics. So, what does this mean? And does it affect athletes' participation? Why have the Beijing Winter Games been so controversial? So, this diplomatic boycott is all about these questions. So, firstly, who are boycotting the Olympics? So, the first country was US. Then later on, UK and Canada also declared a diplomatic boycott. And now, India, Australia, Lithuania, Kosovo, Belgium, Denmark and Estonia have also said that they are boycotting the Winter Olympics diplomatically. But they are sending their athletes but not the ministers or the officials for the Olympic Games. Now they have all sent athletes but no ministers or officials are attending the games. This is what it is meant by diplomatic boycott. And now Japan has also said that it isn't sending ministers to the games but it is sending Olympic officials. So these are the countries which have diplomatically boycotted the Winter Olympics which are held in Beijing in 2022. So what is the reason for such boycott? Now we know that there are many allegations against China for human rights abuse or the atrocities which it is doing in the areas like Xinjiang or the Tibet. So in the region of Xinjiang, China has been accused by US for human rights abuse and atrocities against the Muslim population which is dominated in the region. So we know that there is always a war of words going on between US and China. So US says that China is committing genocide in Xinjiang. Now British has also said that Chinese government commits industrial scale human rights abuse in Uyghur region, Tibet and sends nearly daily military incursion into Taiwan space. So this Xinjiang is nothing but the province where the Uyghur Muslim population stays, and China is accused of illegally detaining many of these Muslims. They are also been used as the forced labor, and women are forcibly sterilized. And also few of them who were detained in the camps have been alleged that they were tortured and sexually exploited by the Chinese officials. Now in this region, China has been accused of banning many religious practices and also destroying many mosques and tombs. And the same thing is happening with the Tibet region. There have been reports that abuse of human rights are taking place in Tibet, which includes there is restriction of freedom of religion, belief and association. And many of the Tibet people are arrested illegally, after which in the custody they are being tortured and there are forced sterilization as well as abortion of the women. So there is a growing genocide in the Tibet region. So these are the reasons why US and British have been diplomatically boycotted the Beijing Olympics of 2022. Also, Beijing is also accused of restricting the freedom of people in Hong Kong through new legislation including the Hong Kong National Security Law. Now, according to people of Hong Kong, they don't have that political liberty and China has illegally occupied the Hong Kong. According to the China, Hong Kong is the part of China. But the people of the Hong Kong, they want liberty, they want freedom from this Chinese government. So people in Hong Kong are protesting against the Chinese presence, Chinese government officials present in the Hong Kong, and the people of the Hong Kong are not getting the democratic rights. So the people are protesting against the China, but China has coming down heavily on these protesters. These demonstrators are illegally arrested, tortured and also beaten up during protest, and there is a abuse of human rights going on in Hong Kong as well. And lastly, the call for boycott of Olympics sharpened when the tennis player of China, PSI, accused the former top government official for sexually assaulting her. So this accusation deepened the call for boycotting of the Olympics. But now, why India is boycotting the Olympics? Why India is diplomatically boycotting the Winter Olympics in Beijing? So recently we have seen that Indian and Chinese troops had a standoff in the Ladakh Galwan Valley as well as in the Doklam. So recently there was a standoff across the bordering areas, across the border of India and China between Indian troops and the Chinese troops. Now India has declared a diplomatic boycott because one of the torch bearer was the Chinese army official and he was involved in the deadly skirmish with the Indian troops on the border between the two countries in Ladakh in the Galwan Valley. And so India has protested against this move and it has declared a diplomatic boycott of Winter Olympic Games. So this was the reason why India has boycotted the Winter Olympic Games diplomatically. So India is also not sending its officials or the ministers for the Winter Olympic Games. So what are the previous boycott of such kind of games? So the first major boycott of Olympic game was in 1976 when about 30 mostly African nations sat out the Montreal Games. They contended that because New Zealand rugby team had tortured apartheid South Africa, New Zealand should be barred from the games. So apartheid was done in South Africa. So these countries doesn't want the New Zealand to be part of the Olympics. So they wanted to throw the New Zealand out of the Olympic Games. So they wanted to boycott the Olympic Games in 1976. Then again, the most prominent boycott came in 1980 when more than 60 countries led by United States boycotted the Summer Games in Moscow because of Soviet Union invasion of Afghanistan the previous year. So we know that Russia attacked Afghanistan in 1979. So to oppose this, US had boycotted the Moscow Games, and along with the US, 60 other countries they have boycotted the Summer Games which took place in 1980 in Moscow. And in 1984, Soviet Union led more than a dozen countries in a boycott of 1984 games in Los Angeles. So in the retaliation, Russia-led movement or the Russia-led boycott along with the 12 other countries, they boycotted the Los Angeles Olympic Games which were held in 1984. So these were some of the major boycotts by the different countries. One more thing we need to understand here is that in 1936 the Olympic Games were to be held in Germany, and that time the Germany was led by Hitler. Many countries they wanted to boycott the Olympic Games that were to be held in Germany, but due to some reason that boycott was called off. So these are some of the previous instances where the Olympic Games, such a grand event or such a grand games competition has been boycotted by different countries for different reasons. So what is the China's response here? What China has to say here? Now China is saying that it is not at all bothered about all this boycott. So it doesn't care unless and until the competition goes on. It is only that the athletes should participate in the games. That is the concern of the China. So it is not bothered about the countries who are boycotting diplomatically the Olympic Games, but it has also said that the government is also saying that those countries which have boycotted the Winter Olympics, which has diplomatically boycotted the Winter Olympics, will pay a price. But what the price will be, it has not yet declared. And now France has also come out in the support of the games. It has said that we should not mix the sports with politics. So for the political reasons, there are different platforms which we need to use. There is no need to mix the sports with politics. So this was all about diplomatic boycott of the Winter Olympics which are to be held in Beijing 2022. So thanks for joining us. Thank you.